Hello everyone, welcome. In this video, let's start our discussion on the 2-5 invasion right here at number 1 against this small knight's enclosure of the corner star point. So the 2-5 invasion is the most effective way to invade the corner. We introduced all the viable moves in the past couple of videos, but this is probably the most important video for you to learn. So what are the viable responses for black? There are actually 4 ways black can respond to this: A, B, C, and D. And in this video, I'll cover A and B first. So both A and B basically mean that black does not want white to get into the corner very easily. But before we begin, let's first talk about whether the 2-5 invasion is forcing or not. And the answer is it is. It is a very forceful move. Locally, black most likely will have to respond, as opposed to the 2-4 invasion. The 2-4 invasion also exists. It is closer to the corner, but the disadvantage of the 2-4 invasion right here is that it is not forcing. Black can play away. And of course, white will want to get to the 3-3 point, but black will be able to keep white on the second line here very easily. So black will be able to enclose white in the corner. But that is not the case when white plays the 2-5 invasion. If, again, black ignores white and plays elsewhere, now white can come in. This is much harsher. It is very difficult for black to keep white on the second line. Right? If you play something like this, then you're really risking this push and cut. And number 4 might be in a weak position. If you try other moves, then white can get on the third line very easily, right? So number 3, this shape right here is very, very good for white. And the 2 black stones on the corner right here are not that efficient because the corner territory is already taken by white. So that's the first takeaway. This 2-5 invasion is forcing locally, while the 2-4 invasion is not as forcing. Of course, whites can take the corner with its next move, but black is not as worried about the 2-4 invasion compared to the 2-5 invasion. So that's part of the reason why this is the best move for white locally. And now let's talk about some of these wrong moves for black, right? You might be thinking, if I'm guarding the corner, then maybe I'll get to the 3-3 point or the 2-3 point right here. So both moves will help black guard the corner. But the problem is that both of these moves fail to put any pressure on number 1, right? So, of course, white has this large knight move, or it's kind of like an extension right here on the upper side at number 3. Or white can even get on the 4th line here and start developing on the 4th line. This is also a pretty good shape for white, actually. Similarly, if black plays here, then again, whites can start developing on the 4th line, or white can simply play an extension on the upper side, or white might be able to even take sente, right, after playing this exchange. So neither of these 2 moves is forceful enough, and that is why you need to play a little bit closer to number 1, right? And that is why this attachment right here is a proper move for black. So there are 2 ways for white to respond. Number 1 is to simply extend. Now black will have to connect. Otherwise, white would push at the same spot, and this is not okay for black. And now white will just play an extension, a 3-space extension on the upper side. This is actually not a bad shape for white, right? You're not really afraid of this invasion, right? Just play something like this and stay on top, and white will be fine. And black still owes a move either here on the second line or here on the first line. So white is not afraid of this invasion. And if black plays a pincer and tries to put pressure on the white group, again, white can just jump toward the center or play something like this toward the center. And white is not too worried. If you play a 2-space extension, then the base is a little too small, right? So the pincer will be harsher, actually, against the 2-space extension. It'll be more difficult for white to make 2 real eyes here. So that is why the proper joseki right here is the 3-space extension when the upper side is empty. So this is the first joseki. Most amateur players might think that black's corner is pretty big, right? It is. It's almost 15 points. But white's position is also not bad. White very effectively prevented black from developing on the upper side, and white built a base here. So I think white can be satisfied, given that black already had a pretty solid small knight's enclosure of the corner. And part of the reason why many amateur players rarely use the 2-5 invasion here at number 1 is that after number 2, no matter what you do, black will be able to secure the corner territory, right? So it feels like number 1 is giving away the corner territory, but you shouldn't think that way necessarily, because white is gaining something, even in this variation where white ends up sacrificing a couple of stones on the corner, right? So this wedge, number 3, is another viable move for white. So black must cut here, right? Play this Atari and try to kill number 3. If black blocks from the inside, then locally this is very good for white, because white will connect here, and now black will have to connect right here, right? Otherwise, you're not really, otherwise, still owe a move here, right? So, and this move will become very redundant, right? It's simply too small. It should be further down. So you have to save number 2 here, and now white will keep playing this bend at number 7. Now black faces a choice, right? Of course, you can keep playing here on the 4th line. This is a pretty solid shape, but white will get a better extension on the upper side. This 3 space extension is more robust than the one we just saw. But if black plays on the upper side, then white will have this Atari, and white will be able to develop into the center very easily, while black's territory here on the corner is pressed to the 3rd line, right? So the territory here is significantly decreased. So either way, white is in a better position than the Joseki we last saw. And that is why, under most circumstances, right, unless black is winning by a lot already, right, you just want to save the corner and you win the game, that's okay. But locally, if you want to play the proper Joseki, if you want to fight, you have to cut here. This Atari, white extends. And now what does black do? Takes a little bit of calculation. It's not too complicated. Now you need to save number 2, right? You cannot just capture number 1 here, because white will have this cut, this Atari. If black connects, then white can Atari here. So now black must save this stone, right? And white will live on the corner, and black will still need another move to kill number 7, right? And there's still some aji, right? Some bad taste for black, bad aftertaste for black after capturing number 7. So white benefits from this variation. And black cannot capture number 1 here, because this way, white will be able to capture this cutting stone, this stone at the start point, right, this way. So this is not acceptable for black. What if black captures here? Now white will play this extra Atari, and under most circumstances, black cannot really trigger this code. It's simply too heavy for black, right? If white wins the code, then the corner is all white, and all these black stones are basically wasted, right? So this is a very, very heavy code for black, but also for white, of course. So depending on the circumstances, most likely black will want to avoid such a code. And what white can do, once again, is to play the Atari here, give up these 2 stones on the corner. The corner is actually not that big, right? It's about 10 points. And white, when the left side is empty, you can play an extension here, or you can take care of the cutting points. And this is slightly better for white. And that is why you do not play number 6 right here. You do not capture this stone. Instead, you make sure number 2 is alive by crawling here on the 2nd line. And now white seems to be in trouble. What does white do? Now, if you simply play this Atari move on the outside, then this is not going to work. The corner is going to get killed, and white's shape on the outside is pretty messy. So now white has to sacrifice 3 and 5 and save number 1. But what's counterintuitive, right, is that number 1 is on the 2nd line. So how do you save a stone on the 2nd line, make it good, right? This is how you do it. You cut here first, Atari. Black must extend. Now white needs an extra liberty, right? It's increasing from 2 liberties to 3 by playing this Atari. Now white has 3 liberties. This is 3 versus 3. But number 1 only has 2 liberties, so number 1 crawls here Now what happens is that black cannot contain these two stones. White will break out very easily, and black cannot extend. If you extend, then white will capture these two stones and take the corner. And the corner is actually pretty big. So most likely black will not be able to play at number 12. So black can only play on the corner. Two choices, either this extension or this hane. I'll talk about the slight difference in just a bit. They're very similar. The scores given by AI are almost identical. So traditionally, human players thought extension is the only proper move, but AI seems to prefer this a little bit more, but they're really, really similar. Anyway, so after black plays a move here on the corner, white plays the Atari, now getting on the third line, right, from the second line. And now white can play another really good move, and that is right here, this diagonal move. And this is threatening this squeeze, right? Number 17 is a squeeze. Black cannot escape. Black can only capture, and now white Atari. Black can only connect here, right? So white will be able to get into a pretty good shape. And black's a little redundant here. And this is a joseki, right? This is a proper joseki for both sides, stemming from the 2-5 invasion. Of course, after number 15, if black wants to avoid the shape that we just saw, black can play an extension here. Seems a little slow, but it is a very solid move. And now, if the upper side is empty, is open, then white will be able to play an extension at number 17. So this is another viable variation for both sides. Two more things before we move on. What is the difference between this extension and this hane? So the difference is that after these exchanges, there is a little bit of aji, right? I think a recent commentator on the site has asked me to explain a little more about aji when the situations come up. I think that's a good idea. So what is aji? Aji is a bad aftertaste one side has after capturing the opponent's stones. So here, black is capturing white, but the white stones still have 3 liberties left, right? So that's not great, but not bad either, right? When you're down to 1 or 2 liberties, then it's usually a guaranteed capture with no extra worries. But if you have 3 liberties, then this attachment might be a problem sometime down the line, right? So white will be able to reduce black's territory this way, right? Which is quite annoying. So that is why AI also found this move, and this means that there's really no more aji here, right? Or even after this exchange, right? Number 25 can be ignored. This move can be ignored because why? Because number 27 is not going to work, right? Black can still capture these stones. So I think that's the slight difference. Maybe it doesn't really matter to amateur players, but the downside to number 12 is that you're giving white 2 extra co-threats here in the corner, right? Which might make a difference if there are co's down the line. So it's a small difference. You shouldn't worry too much about it. I think I'm explaining it just for the sake of covering everything. But there's another move, another human invention that's already outdated, and that is this net, right? Now the proper move, you have to remember, really, really good move. It's not that easy to find on your own, I would say. But in old Joseki books, you might see this move. And this is a bad move. Why? Because black can push here, and this is not really a squeeze, right? This is a real eye. So black's shape is okay. But white all of a sudden has 4 cutting points on the outside, and you can only play 1 move, and it has to be right here, right? So this way, white will be cut off, right? Black has 2 choices on where to cut, and this is not great for white, right? You're just making a whole bunch of cutting points. Of course, number 15 is threatening to play the squeeze, but black is not going to allow white to play the squeeze. So black will just push here, and these 4 cutting points are not fun for white to deal with. So that's it about number 2, this attachment, right? White has 2 choices. One is this, and the other is the variation that we just saw, right? Starting with these moves. What about this extension? This extension is relatively more simple. Again, white has two choices on its next move. It can just play on the upper side, right? So number one is threatening to come into the corner. If black denies white, then white will want to settle on the upper side. If black allows white to come into the corner, then white should take the corner and allow black to get influence, right? So these are the trade-offs that the two sides are making here. So if number two, again, is preventing white from taking the corner at the 3-3 point, white should probably just build a base here, right? Build a base, and this is playable for both sides. Playable for white as well, even though the base seems a little bit small, but the shape is pretty solid. For under other circumstances, right, this extra large knight's move also works. A little far from number one, but depending on the circumstances, this might also work. Another choice is to push once into the corner, and most likely, right, if you already played number two, you want to follow up and protect the corner, right? You probably don't want to change your mind and allow white to take the corner after number two. So most likely, black will have to play this hane and protect the corner. And now the next move, really, really important for amateur players to learn, right? This is the kind of moves that a lot of players miss from the beginning, I would say. When they're beginners, when they're Q players, they don't really understand the value of moves like this. First of all, this is forcing, right? This is very good. If black ignores it, then you cut off number four, and white is already alive. Very, very good shape. Black still needs another move to protect this cut, right? So there's no way black can ignore this. Black must answer. And it is a headache for black. So the correct move here, most likely, is to just connect or play this hane and allow white to connect back, or allow white to have the option of connecting back. Right? This is the correct move. Just connect here. But it is very tempting for amateur players to want to stand down here to cut off number five. And this is where aji comes again, right? Number five is dead. It is cut off. White does not have this cut. Right? If you cut here, then black will just capture white this way. Very easy. But the problem is that there's a bad aftertaste. So once again, we have this attachment. Right? It's pretty aggressive. It seems a little far from this cutting point, but it's not that far. If you play extensions like this, or this, then this is already a very good exchange for white. Right? White can be really happy about these exchanges. So most likely black will want to fight, right? You want to put more pressure on white. That's why you want to play the hane here. But then white will be able to play some of these moves, right, to reduce black's corner territory. And in the future, white will have this as well, right? So the corner territory is basically gone for black, right? So there are all kinds of moves here that might be a headache, right, if you stand down here at number 6. So that is why the proper move, right, under most circumstances, is simply for black to connect here. So this exchange is more advanced, but when they come up in these josekis, I think it's worth explaining to all amateur players, including beginners and Q players. If you can understand what I just said, great. Please remember it, right? Because this is the type of moves that a lot of amateur players don't really learn, don't really grasp, and almost never use in games. But you see this in professional games and AI games all the time, right? This clamping move. This is what it means. And that is why, right, usually a black has to connect here. It doesn't kill number 5 because of the aji, of the potential bad aftertaste you have to deal with, right? It is easier to allow white the possibility of connecting back. And the trick question here, of course, is can white connect here at number 7? And the answer is, of course, not, right? You have to get on the 3rd line here on the outside. You cannot connect this endgame move on the 1st line here, right? So number 5, again, is really a probing move, right? It's testing black. It wants either the aji or the possibility of connecting back, but you do not connect back because it is a relatively small endgame move. We're talking of josekis. Josekis are played when the board is relatively empty, and there are other big things for you to do, right? So again, the proper move is to play on the upper side. And number 7, under most circumstances, it's a large nice move right here on the 3rd line. You're not really afraid of this, right? This is a pretty good shape, pretty good connection. If you play an extra large, nice move, then black will be able to play 2 moves on the third line. So this is a better shape for black, right? Better exchange for black. But depending on the circumstances, right? If you really need this stone to be here, then by all means, go for it. But when the upper side is empty like this, then number 7 is the proper move. And now most likely, if it's still open, then black will want to pincer, put some pressure on this white group, and white will want to play right here. Once again, very good shape, very solid shape here. This is the type of moves you need to learn from these josekis. Very good shape for white. So once again, white is not taking a corner territory, is not building a huge territory on the upper side. It is really just seeking a solid base, right? And that is what your expectation should be, right? Your expectation shouldn't be too high or unreasonable, right? Because after all, your opponent started with a very, very solid corner enclosure. And if you can get to this as white, you should be satisfied. So that's it for this lesson. We learned about why the 2-5 invasion is the best because it is forcing. We learned about why these 2 moves don't work because they do not put enough pressure on number 1. And we learned what happens after black plays this attachment or this extension. And in the next video, we'll talk about what happens when black plays this diagonal move or this small knight's move. It's kind of a shoulder hit, and both moves will most likely involve white taking the corner and black exchanging it for influence on the outside, which is a theme that I've been emphasizing in the past couple of videos. So we'll see how that materializes in the next video. Please stay tuned, and thank you for watching.